Stop pretending you don't know why your life looks the way it does. It is not a mystery. It is not bad luck. It is not fate picking on you while it blesses everyone else. Your current reality is the report card of one thing: what you have repeatedly done with your time, your mind, and your will. Nothing more, nothing less. That is the hidden law people refuse to face. They wait for a miracle and ignore the law. Then they say, success is unfair. No, success is not unfair. Success is obedient. It always bows to the same law, and that law has no favorites. Listen to me. If you feel stuck, defeated, average, or invisible, it is not because there is no path forward. It is because you have not yet aligned yourself with the principle that governs every promotion, every fortune, and every lasting achievement. You have chased motivation, not mastery. You have chased inspiration, not discipline. You have chased comfort dressed up as self-care while your potential rots in the corner. And all the while this law has been standing beside you, waiting, unchanging, offering you the same contract it has offered every man and woman who has ever risen from nothing to something. Give me consistent obedience, and I will give you power that cannot be taken from you. The hidden law is ruthless, but it is not cruel. It is indifferent. It does not bend for tears. It does not pause for complaints. It does not consider how busy you are, how tired you are, or how unfair your circumstances have been. It looks only at what you do, over and over, until it can no longer doubt who you really are. You are not what you say. You are not what you dream about at night. You are what you repeat. That is the definition this law uses, and it never gets it wrong. You have spent years telling yourself stories. I would be farther ahead if I had different parents. If I had more time, if I had more support, if people understood me. Those stories have one purpose: to let you keep your habits and blame something else. They protect your comfort. They protect your laziness. They protect your fear. But they do not protect your future. Every time you choose a story over a standard, this law makes a note. It records that when confronted with the chance to rise, you chose to explain instead. And when the day comes for results to appear, you call it fate, but it is not fate. It is the bill for every small decision you hoped would not matter. People miss the law because they are addicted to drama, not truth. Truth is simple and heavy. Drama is complicated and light. Truth says, you are responsible for what you do daily. Drama says, a lot of things happen to you. Truth says, your habits are the cause, your life is the effect. Drama says, let's talk about everyone else. Truth will set you free, but only after it strips you naked of every excuse. Drama will keep you stuck while it makes you feel important. Millions choose drama. A handful choose truth. Only that handful ever learn how unstoppable a human being becomes when they finally submit to the law. Here is that law, stripped of all softness. You will inevitably become the average of your dominant habits, not the average of your desires. You can want like a millionaire and work like a coward, and this law will ignore your wishes and respect your cowardice. You can dream like a champion and behave like a spectator, and this law will sit you in the stands and let you watch others play. You can talk, affirm, visualize, and journal until your pen runs dry. But if your actions contradict your declarations, this law will call you what you are: a liar to yourself. You say you are serious about success. The law says, show me your mornings. You say you are committed to mastery. The law says, show me the hours you put in when you are bored, tired, ignored, and unrewarded. You say you are done with mediocrity. The law says, show me what you do the moment your old life pulls at your ankle and whispers, come back just for tonight. You can hide from other people. You can fool them with your image, your talk, your curated moments. You cannot hide from this law. It is watching when you procrastinate. It is watching every time you choose the easy thing over the necessary thing. You have been taught to chase goals. That is where most people go wrong. Goals are loud. Standards are quiet. Goals excite you. Standards expose you. A goal is something you want. A standard is something you refuse to live below. The hidden law does not reward the person with the biggest goals. It rewards the person with the highest enforced standards. Two people can have the same goal of wealth, health, or influence. One will enforce standards like, I do not waste my mornings. I do not break my word. I do not leave work half done. I do not feed my mind trash. The other will say, I'll do my best. The law does not pay, I'll do my best. It pays. I do what is required, whether I feel like it or not. You have to decide which kind of person you are. Not in theory, in practice. When the alarm rings, do you rise or negotiate? When the work becomes boring, do you stay or flee to your distractions? When nobody is watching, do you still give your best or do you save your best for an audience? The hidden law is not moved by what you do once in a while when you feel inspired. It is moved by what you do regularly when you feel nothing at all. That is, when your true allegiance is revealed, to your vision or to your weakness. Most people never last long enough for the law to trust them. They sprint for a week and disappear for a month. They change their plan every time a feeling moves through them. They treat their word to themselves like a casual suggestion instead of a binding contract. So the law withholds power from them. Power is not a prize. It is a responsibility. Why would the universe entrust serious influence, serious resources, serious opportunity to someone who cannot even command themselves for 7 days in a row? It will not. It does not. It never has. You must understand that the early stages of obedience to this law are the hardest, because that is where the gap between who you say you are and who you actually are is revealed. The first time you keep a promise to yourself that you would have broken in the past, you feel the pain of separation from your old identity. The first time you sit down to work with full focus while your distractions begs for your attention and your old habits claw at you, you feel the thickness of resistance. That is not a sign something is wrong. That is a sign you are finally in the fight that matters. The fight is not against the outside world. The fight is not against your critics, your competitors, your circumstances, or your past. The fight is between the part of you that is tired of being average and the part of you that is terrified of being exceptional, because exceptional comes with responsibility. Exceptional comes with visibility. Exceptional comes with standards you can never again pretend not to know. The hidden law sides with whichever part you feed. Ask yourself now, honestly, when discomfort shows up, do you feed your future or your past? When stress hits, do you run to numbness or to discipline? When you feel insecurity, do you hide or do you train? Every time you choose escape over effort, you vote for the life you say you hate. Every time you choose effort over escape, you vote for the life you keep pretending is out of reach. The law simply counts the votes. This is why your excuses are so deadly. They do not only protect your feelings, they protect your old identity. I'm too busy. I'm not ready. I'm not like those people. I don't know where to start. These sentences sound harmless. They are not. They are the quiet language of surrender. The law hears them and says, very well. If you insist on being limited, I will honor your insistence. You are not waiting on the universe. The universe is waiting on you to stop arguing for your own smallness. You want a breakthrough? Stop asking for one and start qualifying for one. A breakthrough is not a magic event. A breakthrough is simply the day your accumulated discipline finally becomes visible. For months, maybe years, you do the right things and see little return. You plant, you water, you sweat in the dark, and the earth looks flat and unresponsive. That is the test. Most people curse the soil and walk away. The few who understand the law keep working. Then one day, what was hidden breaks through. The world calls it sudden success. It is not sudden. It is the interest on 1,000 invisible decisions. Hear me clearly. Nothing you do in alignment with this law is wasted. Not one focused hour. Not one disciplined choice. Not one act of restraint when your old self begged you to cave. The law records everything. You may feel like nothing is changing because you have confused visible change with real change. Real change happens first in who you are becoming, not in what you are getting. The law upgrades your identity before it upgrades your circumstances. That way, when your circumstances finally rise, they have someone strong enough to live up to them. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not too old, too young, too late, or too damaged. You are simply at whatever level your dominant habits have trained you to live at. And that can be changed. Not by wishing, not by whining, not by waiting, by submitting daily, fiercely to the law that says what you repeatedly do, you irrevocably become. If you train your body to quit, you become a quitter. If you train your mind to focus, you become focused. If you train your character to keep its word, you become trustworthy. The law is not poetic, it is precise. So what do you do now? You stop pretending this is about motivation. You stop waiting to feel like it. You choose one standard that represents the higher version of you, and you enforce it today, whether your emotions support you or betray you. You choose one habit that has kept you small, and you cut it off as if your life depends on it, because it does. You choose one promise to yourself, and you keep it, no matter how trivial it looks on the surface, because you are not training the world, you are training you. From this day forward, every morning you wake up. You are not just getting out of bed, you are stepping into court. The hidden law is the judge. Your habits are the witnesses. Your results are the verdict. Argue if you want. Explain if you want. Cry if you want. The judge does not reply to speeches. It replies to evidence. The only question that matters from the moment your feet hit the floor is this. What evidence will you present today that you are the person you say you want to be? You have stood before the law and heard the verdict. Your life is the sum of your repeated choices. Now you must decide whether to resent that truth or use it. Weak minds resent it. They want a softer universe, one that makes emotional exceptions, one that grades on intention instead of execution. Strong minds use it. They see the precision of this law as their greatest advantage because it means they can build from this moment forward a future that is not dependent on luck, permission, or rescue. If the law only responds to what you repeatedly do, then you are holding the lever every second of your day. The question is not whether the lever works. The question is whether you will keep pulling it in the same tired direction or force yourself to pull it toward a new life. Start with this. Your daily routine is your real belief system, not your religion, not your affirmations, not your private fantasies. If you say you believe in health, but you treat your body like a trash can, the law accepts your behavior as the truth and your words as noise. If you say you believe in wealth, but you spend every extra dollar on impulse and escape, the law concludes that you do not yet respect money and therefore cannot be trusted with more. If you say you believe in purpose, but you give your finest hours away to random entertainment and gossip, the law marks you down as recreational, not intentional. So take your days apart, hour by hour. You cannot afford vagueness. When do you wake? And what do you do in the first 30 minutes? That window tells the law whether you are a leader of your life or a follower of your feelings. Leaders seize that first slice of time and use it to set their mind, their focus, their plan. Followers roll over and check what the world wants from them before they have even decided what they want from themselves. The law is watching. When you sit down to work, are you working or pretending? Pretending is when your body is present, but your mind is scattered. You dabble. You touch everything and complete nothing. You keep 1,000 tabs open and make no progress on what actually matters. You tell yourself you are busy, but the law sees the truth. Your energy is leaking everywhere. Your will is undisciplined. Your attention is untrained. It cannot reward that. Focus is not a personality trait. It is a habit. You build it by repeatedly refusing to fracture your attention. You build it by putting your distraction away, shutting the door, locking on to one task, and staying there long enough to produce something real. Do that enough times, and the law begins to treat you differently. It starts sending you opportunities that demand and reward deep work. When you feel resistance, what do? That moment, more than any other, defines your relationship to this law. Resistance shows up as boredom, as fear, as confusion, as I'm not in the mood. It whispers, take a break. Do it later. This is too much. You deserve a rest. Resistance always sounds reasonable. That is how it survives. Most people obey it automatically. They have never learned to distinguish between a genuine need to rest and the lazy impulse to escape. The hidden law does not punish rest. It punishes surrender. Rest is planned and purposeful. Surrender is impulsive and disguised as self-compassion. You must train yourself to see the difference. How? By deciding in advance what you will do and holding yourself to it regardless of how you feel in the moment. Feelings are weather. Standards are climate. If you let weather decide your behavior, your life will always be chaotic. If you let climate, your chosen standards, decide your behavior, your life will become stable and powerful. That is when the law begins to trust you. Look at your language. The law listens when you speak. Not because your words alone create reality, but because your words reveal your internal allegiance. When you say things like, I can't help it, that's just who I am, nothing ever works out for me, you are writing instructions into your subconscious and handing the law a script to follow. Yet most people speak this way as if they are merely reporting facts. They are not reporting, they are programming. You must stop using your mouth to reinforce the very identity you say you want to escape. Never again say, I always quit. Say instead, I used to quit. Now I finish. Then act accordingly. Never again say, I'm terrible with money. Say, I am learning to master money, and then prove it with a new habit of tracking and directing it. Never again say, I'm just lazy. Lazy is not who you are. It is what you have practiced. Practice something else. The law is not sentimental. It will not argue with your self-image. If you insist on being the kind of person who quits, it will surround you with the results that belong to quitters. Change the image. Change the habit. The law will follow. Most people never question the stories they tell themselves. They treat them as sacred and blame the world for confirming them. See, they say, I knew it. The truth is they did know it because they created it. The law responded. That is why you must become relentless about interrogating your own thoughts. When your mind tells you you're behind, answer it. Behind compared to what? To whom? According to which timetable? Show me the law that says a human being must achieve everything by a certain age or surrender their dreams. There is no such law. The only law is that you will reap what you repeatedly sow. Start sowing differently today, and in time you will walk in a different field. You do not need to believe you can rewrite your entire life in one day. You do need to believe that what you do today matters, because it does. This is where most people lose the law. They underestimate the power of a single day, and they overestimate what they will do someday. Someday is the favorite word of the unsuccessful. The law does not recognize someday. It recognizes today and repeatedly. These are the only 2 days it cares about. What you did today and what you keep doing, everything you push into someday, you are handing to the grave. If you want proof, look at your own history. Think of something you once said you would start when the time was right. How long ago did you say that? Where would you be now if you had started on that exact day with even imperfect action? How much skill, progress, and confidence would you have accumulated by simply honoring that decision daily? That is the cost of someday, a cost you can measure in lost opportunities, lost years, and lost self-respect. The hidden law is not punishing you when you delay. It is simply refusing to pay a wage for work you never did. You must learn to use time like an investor, not a consumer. A consumer uses time to feel better now. An investor uses time to be better later. The consumer says, how can I pass these hours pleasantly? The investor says, how can I spend these hours so that tomorrow's me is stronger, clearer, more capable? The law rewards the investor. It pities the consumer, but it does not rescue him. You will not be saved from the consequences of a life spent hiding from effort. You will only be offered another day and another chance to choose differently. This is where environment enters. You cannot try to obey this law and simultaneously bathe yourself in influences that constantly invite you to break it. Your surroundings are either reinforcing your standards or eroding them. There is no neutral ground. If the people closest to you complain more than they create, explain more than they execute, and envy more than they learn, you are soaking in a poison that will kill your discipline slowly. You may tell yourself you are different, that you are simply being loyal, that you can rise above it. The law says otherwise. It knows that humans adapt to the average of their surroundings. It knows that you will eventually speak like, think like, and act like the people you allow into your inner circle. This does not mean you must despise or discard everyone who is not yet aligned. It does mean you must be ruthless about who has access to your time and your attention. You do not owe anyone the right to drag you back to the level they are comfortable with. Your first duty is to the life you were entrusted with. Limiting contact with people who sabotage your standards is not betrayal, it is self-respect. When the law sees you honor yourself this way, it begins to send you others who are also serious, also committed, also done with excuses. Success is a magnet and so is mediocrity. You choose which one you will become. Your digital environment matters just as much. The accounts you follow, the content you consume, the noise you allow into your mental space, all of it is either feeding your discipline or feeding your distraction. If you spend hours watching other people live the life you want, the law can only conclude that you prefer fantasy to responsibility. It will let you keep watching. It will not interrupt your entertainment with achievement. Achievement is reserved for those who close the screen and work on themselves. The mind you need cannot be built on a diet of constant stimulation. It needs quiet. It needs boredom. It needs repeated friction with a single hard problem until it becomes strong enough to solve it. The hidden law favors those who can sit alone, think deeply, and act decisively. It does not favor those who flit from novelty to novelty, always searching for a new technique, a new hack, a new way to shortcut the process it has already laid out. Decide, commit, act, review, refine, repeat. There is no hack that will save you from the requirement to repeat. The law was designed this way on purpose. Repetition is where character is forged. Anyone can act right once. Only those who repeat action long after the spark of novelty has died earn the power to be trusted with more. You want more money? The law says, show me that you can consistently manage the little you have with wisdom. You want more influence? The law says, show me that you can consistently handle small responsibility without ego. You want more freedom? The law says, show me that you can consistently discipline yourself without a boss watching you. Until you do, it will keep you in training, no matter how loudly you demand graduation. You must also deal with the most dangerous illusion of all, the illusion of trying. People constantly tell themselves, I'm trying. The law is unimpressed. It does not pay effort. It pays results from effort applied long enough and intelligently enough to work. You do not try to be disciplined. You either act in accordance with discipline or you don't. You do not try to keep your word. You either keep it or you break it. Trying gives you emotional credit for failures you never corrected. It allows you to feel noble while remaining ineffective. The law is not fooled by noble feelings. So stop keeping score with emotion. Start keeping score with evidence. At the end of the day, do not ask yourself, did I feel motivated? Ask, what did I actually do? Do not ask, did I mean well? Ask, what did I complete? The more your self-assessment is based on reality instead of good intentions, the more accurately you can adjust. The better you adjust, the more precisely you align with the law. The more precisely you align, the more predictable your success becomes. You will notice something else as you begin to live this way. Guilt loses its grip. Not because you become perfect, but because you stop hiding from your own behavior. When you break your standard, you admit it quickly, correct it immediately, and move on without drama. Failure stops being an identity and becomes feedback. You no longer waste energy on self-hatred because you have something better to do with that energy. Change. The hidden law loves this attitude. It was never designed to crush you for falling short. It was designed to reward you for getting up and adjusting. But it will not let you lie. If you insist on calling weakness self-care, calling avoidance waiting for the right time, calling fear being realistic, it will treat you accordingly. You will receive realistic results, which is another word for what most people settle for when they get tired of fighting. Do not join them. Reality is not fixed, it is shaped. The law is the chisel. Your habits are the hands. Use them wisely and the sculpture changes. Use them foolishly and the stone remains unshaped and heavy. Pause for a moment and imagine what your life would look like if, for the next 12 months, you refused to break your own standards. Imagine 12 months of getting up when you say you will, working when you say you will, training your mind instead of numbing it, feeding your body for performance instead of comfort, saying no to what weakens you and yes to what strengthens you. Imagine 12 months of no more someday, only today. Can you see the difference? That is not fantasy. That is simple mathematics under this law. You do not need 12 months of perfection. You need 12 months of relentless return. You will slip. You will fall. You will have days where the old patterns win. The law does not slam the door in your face. It simply asks one question. What will you do now? The old you would justify, explain, and repeat. The new you corrects, recommits, and returns. That is the real transformation. The distance between falling and getting back up shrinks. The time you spend lying to yourself shrinks. The number of days wasted in self-pity shrinks. The law sees this shrinking and responds by expanding your capacity and your opportunity. This is how people you once considered extraordinary were built. Not by magic, not by a secret known only to them. By this law, by 1,000 quiet, disciplined returns after 1,000 loud, tempting invitations to quit. They bled in the arena of their own habits until quitting stopped being an option their mind could take seriously. You can choose that same path, or you can choose the other one. The path where you continue to talk about what you could do while the years slide past and the law keeps handing you the consequences of your inaction. You already know which path you have been on. You do not need me to tell you. Your results have done that. The only thing that matters now is whether you will step off that old path and onto the new one, not with a speech, but with a pattern. Not with a burst of effort, but with a system. Not with more promises, but with more proof. The hidden law that guarantees success is not hiding anymore, at least not from you. You have heard it spelled out, exposed, stripped of all disguise. Most will never accept it. They will continue searching for something less demanding, less direct, less honest. Let them search. You no longer need to. You have found the only principle that never fails. You are, and always will be, the compounded result of what you repeatedly do, think, and tolerate. Align those three with who you are determined to become, and the law will, in time, shape reality to match. There comes a point where you cannot unknow what you now know. You have seen the law. You understand that your life is not a mystery. It is arithmetic, the sum of small, repeated choices. At first, that truth feels like a slap. It exposes every hour you threw away, every promise you casually broke to yourself, every day you let slip by on autopilot. But if you stay with the sting, if you refuse to run back into the comfort of denial, something shifts. You begin to see that this same law that judged your past can guarantee your future. The principle that condemned your excuses is the one that can make your success inevitable if you will surrender to it completely. From that moment on, the question changes. It is no longer, why am I stuck? It becomes, will I keep living beneath what I now understand? The war from here is not outside, it is inside. Outwardly, nothing dramatic may change at first. You wake up in the same bed, in the same city, with the same responsibilities. But inside, two selves start to clash. One self is angry that you allowed yourself to drift for so long. The other is terrified of what true change will demand. And make no mistake, a higher standard will demand blood. It will cost you your laziness, your victimhood, your excuses, your cheap escapes, your need for constant distraction, your fake comfort in the opinions of people who are just as stuck as you. It will cost you the identity you've been rehearsing for years, the one that always has a reason, always has a story, always has a justification for why you are not yet who you could be. The law does not bargain over that price. It simply asks, will you let this old self die so the new one can live? Most people cannot do it. They flirt with transformation, but never commit. They clean up their act briefly, and when the first real discomfort hits, when discipline feels heavy and progress feels slow, they run back to the misery they already know. They tell themselves, at least here I'm comfortable. That is how a person becomes a voluntary captive. Their cell is built from sentences they keep repeating. This is just who I am. This is just how life is. This is as far as people like me get. The law watches all of this without emotion. It does not drag anyone out of their cage. It simply keeps handing them more of what they have trained it to believe they want. You cannot afford that. You have seen too much. You know that every day, every decision is either pulling you into alignment with the law or pushing you further away. There is no neutral day. So the next phase of your life cannot just be about adding new information. It must be about building a new identity that the law will recognize as different. You must define in clear terms who you are from now on, not just in theory, but in practice. Begin with a decision, not a slogan. From today forward, I am a person whose actions match my words. I finish what I start. I live by standards, not moods. Do not wait until you feel like this person. That is where most lose the law. They think identity is a feeling. It is not. Identity under this law is evidence. You will not feel like a disciplined, capable, powerful individual at first. You will feel like a liar. Good. That is proof you have stepped beyond your old limits. Your feelings are simply reporting on your old training. Ignore them. Act anyway. Every time you obey your standard instead of your mood, you carve another line into the new identity you are building. This is how imposter syndrome actually dies, not by chanting affirmations, but by piling up so much proof that your old self can no longer argue. One morning you wake up, sit down to your work, and realize there is no drama in the decision. You do it because that is what you do now. The law has watched you long enough to believe you. Now it begins to respond. Opportunities that once slid past you unnoticed start to stick. Problems that used to crush you become puzzles you can solve. You simply became a different person in the eyes of the law, and the law adjusted your environment to match. Understand something crucial. This law is as much about what you remove as what you add. Everyone loves to talk about adding habits, skills, routines. The unglamorous side is subtraction. There are behaviors you already know are poison. Reflexively grabbing the remote control whenever you're bored or uncomfortable, reaching for escape every time you feel stress, surrounding yourself with people who feed your complaints instead of your growth, indulging thoughts that always end with why bother. These patterns are not innocent. They are a system designed to keep you exactly where you are. Every time you obey them, you vote for your current level. Start cutting them. Not all at once, not with drama, but deliberately. Choose one obvious, damaging pattern and break it today. If you always start your morning killing time, replace it with 15 minutes of focused work or study. If your evenings dissolve into mindless consumption, carve out a non-negotiable block to advance your chief aim. If you habitually join in negative conversations, step back and go silent when they begin. The law will not reward you for saying, I really need to change. It will reward you for removing what clearly does not belong in the life you say you want. The way you interpret pain will either align you with this law or turn you against it. Pain is inevitable. Confusion, rejection, fatigue, failure. These are part of growth. The average person treats pain as a verdict. This hurts, therefore it's not meant to be. The disciplined person treats pain as feedback. This hurts, therefore something important is being forged. The pain is the same. What differs is the meaning you attach to it. The law responds to the meaning. If you use hardship as justification to quit, the law records that your desire is weak. If you use hardship as fuel to refine your approach and deepen your resolve, the law records that your desire is strong. Look back at the hardest seasons of your life. You survived them. What did they expose? Where you were naive, where you were undisciplined, where you depended too much on others and too little on your own judgment, where your ego was louder than your wisdom. None of that is pleasant to admit, but it is priceless information. Most people waste it. They relive the hurt and ignore the lesson. The hidden law honors those who do the opposite. When you say, this pain showed me exactly where I must grow, and then you act on that, you turn suffering into power. You must also cure yourself of comparison if you want a clean relationship with this law. Comparison is one of the quickest ways to poison your own progress. You look at someone ahead of you, and instead of asking, what can I learn from the way they have obeyed the law, you ask, why them and not me? That question is a trap. It blinds you to process and focuses you on outcome. You begin to resent what you should be studying. You forget that the law that raised them will raise you if you are willing to do what they did. Submit to its demands over time. The law is not grading you on a curve. It does not care who started earlier, who had more help, who had better circumstances. It is not comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. It only asks, are you further in obedience than you were yesterday? Your competition is not the man on the stage or the name in the headlines. Your competition is the weaker version of you that still lives in your habits. Beat that version today, and the law will mark the win. Tomorrow, it will ask again. One of the most brutal tests the law uses is monotony. The beginning of any new standard carries a high. You feel sharp, motivated, almost heroic. You clean your space, draw up a plan, announce your intentions. But the law is not impressed with your opening ceremony. It is watching your ordinary Tuesdays. It is watching your rainy days, your tired afternoons, your lonely nights. Can you do the right thing when it feels like nothing is happening? Can you write the page when no one will read it today? Can you go to bed on time when nobody will congratulate you for it? Most people cannot. They are addicted to the feeling of new, not the discipline of consistent. So they hop from strategy to strategy, routine to routine, goal to goal. Every time the initial rush wears off, they assume it's not working and start over. This keeps them permanently at the surface of their potential. They never stay with anything long enough for compounding to begin. The law cannot multiply what you keep uprooting. Learn to see monotony as the crucible where the old you dies. Every time you do the right, necessary, boring thing, you are burying your former self a little deeper. You are proving to the law that you are no longer driven only by appetite and excitement. You are becoming someone governed by principle. And that is precisely the kind of person the law favors with long-term stability and influence. There is another layer. How you handle your own failures in private. Publicly, everyone has a face. Privately, you know exactly when you broke your word, when you hid, when you chose the easy road. In those moments, the old you wants to flood your mind with shame. See, nothing has changed. This is who you really are. If you agree, you will go backwards, not because the law has rejected you, but because you have declared yourself unworthy of continuing. Replace shame with responsibility. When you fall, admit it quickly. I broke my standard. Do not minimize it. Do not dramatize it. Then ask, what triggered it? What will I change so this is less likely next time? Make the adjustment and move on. The law is not offended by stumbles. It is offended by surrender. A single day off the path does not define you. Refusing to get back on does. As you keep returning, something remarkable happens. Your trust in yourself grows. At the beginning, your promises mean little because you know your own history of backing out. But each time you come back after a slip, each time you restart without waiting for the perfect moment, you teach yourself that you can be depended on. Self-trust is the rarest and most powerful form of confidence. It is not loud. It is the quiet knowledge that when you decide, you act. The hidden law pays close attention to that. When it sees that you are now someone who will keep going with or without applause, it begins to arrange circumstances that require exactly that kind of steadiness. Fear loses much of its power at this stage. You stop lying awake, worrying. What if it doesn't work? Because you finally understand how the law operates. It cannot fail. The only thing that can fail is your willingness to keep aligning. You stop asking, will I get an opportunity? Because you know that opportunity is attracted to readiness. You stop saying, I'm behind, because you recognize that the only schedule that matters is the one between today's discipline and tomorrow's harvest. Slowly, your inner climate changes. You are no longer exhausted by endless arguments between intention and action. You are no longer chasing hit after hit of motivation to do what needs to be done. You simply do it. That is what maturity looks like under this law. That is what real power feels like. Not fireworks, but a deep, steady flame. People around you will feel it before they can explain it. They will notice the calm in your decisions, the steadiness in your work, the lack of drama in your progress. They will come to you not because you are loud, but because you are solid. In a world full of scattered, half-committed people, someone who consistently does what they say they will do becomes magnetic. The law has turned you into that person, not by accident, but by reflecting back the discipline you chose again and again. And when you find yourself in that place, do not forget how you got there. You did not get there by luck. You did not get there by a secret shortcut. You got there by discovering the hidden law that guarantees success and deciding finally to stop missing it. You chose standards over stories. You chose repetition over excuses. You chose obedience over drama. You chose to become, every day, a little less like the person you were and a little more like the person you were meant to be. That choice is still in front of you every morning. The law will be there, waiting, neutral as ever, ready to record what you do next. Make sure your next act, and the one after that, proves that you have understood what most never will. Your life is not happening to you under this law. It is happening through you. You are not a spectator. You are the cause. Act like it, and the law will make sure your success is no longer a question of if, but only a matter of when. If you truly accept that you are the cause, not the victim of your results, then the way you look at every day from this moment forward must change. You can no longer treat today as something to get through. Today is not a hallway you rush down to reach some future event where life finally begins. Today is the tool. Today is the test. Today is the proof. The hidden law is not waiting for some distant, dramatic decision. It is evaluating what you do with this ordinary stretch of 24 hours. Most people let this day vanish in a fog of distraction and then ask, years from now, what happened to my life? Nothing happened. The law simply delivered on what they repeatedly chose. This is why you must start attaching weight to your smallest actions. When you break a promise to yourself, it is not a little thing. It is a vote for the identity of someone whose word means nothing. When you silence the alarm after swearing you would rise, it is not just a few extra minutes of sleep. It is a confession that your comfort still outranks your calling. When you say, I'll do it later, you are not rescheduling a task. You are rehearsing avoidance. Each of these choices seems harmless in isolation, but the law never looks at them in isolation. It stacks them, averages them, and hands you back a life that is the exact reflection of that average. You will know you have truly aligned with this law when you stop asking, what can I get away with? And start asking, what is the highest standard I can hold here? The average person tries to find the line they must not cross so they can stand as close to it as possible without consequence. The master asks, what behavior would the greatest version of me choose right now? And then moves toward that, even when no one is there to applaud. The law eventually elevates the one who voluntarily chooses the higher standard and exposes the one who has been quietly cutting corners, even if both look similar on the surface for a while. You must understand that there is a delay built into this process, and that delay is where destinies separate. For a season, the disciplined and the undisciplined can appear to be on the same level. Two people can work in the same office, live in the same building, earn the same paycheck. On the outside, you cannot tell whose future is compounding and whose is decaying. But underneath, the law is running its calculations. One is storing up strength, skill, credibility, and inner power. The other is storing up regret, weakness, distrust, and dependence. There will come a day when the gap between them is no longer invisible. They will wake up in different worlds, created by the same law, responding to different habits. Do not be fooled by these early seasons where your progress is invisible. This is where almost everyone fails. They do not see immediate reward for their new discipline, so they abandon it and declare, it doesn't work. They plant a seed, dig it up, and then curse the soil. The law is not denying them, it is testing them. It is asking, do you obey only when rewarded, or do you obey because this is who you are now? The moment your obedience stops being a bargaining chip and becomes your nature, the law stops testing and starts releasing. Inner freedom is the first release. Long before you hold outward success in your hands, you will feel something shift in your chest. The background noise of guilt begins to fade. You no longer live in constant negotiation with yourself. You say what you will do, and you do it. That simple pattern creates a strength that cannot be faked. It does not shout or boast. It simply exists like bedrock beneath a city. The hidden law loves bedrock. It will build on it. From there, your competence compounds. Because you are now showing up consistently, your skills sharpen. Work that once overwhelmed you becomes manageable. Problems you used to run from become puzzles you know you can solve. Each solved problem raises your internal ceiling of what feels possible. That ceiling, not the economy or your background, has always been your true limit. Then comes external confirmation. People begin to notice, not because you told them to, but because results are hard to hide. You get offers, raises, invitations, responsibilities. Some call it favor. Some call it fate. You know what it is, the law paying out dividends on the discipline you deposited when nobody was watching. The same people who once dismissed your seriousness as too much begin to ask you for advice. They will point at tactics and timing. You will know it was much simpler, much harder than that. You stop missing the law. There is a temptation at this stage to relax, to say, I've earned this. I can coast now. That is, how many lose what they gain. The law is not something you obey to get somewhere and then abandon. It governs the summit just as surely as it governs the climb. Many have reached a peak only to be destroyed by success they did not keep training for. Wealth without continued discipline becomes decay. Influence without continued humility becomes corruption. Power without continued purpose becomes poison. The very law that raised you will allow your fall if you begin to break the standards that made you rise. So you must make a second decision. Not only will I live by this law until I make it, I will live by it for as long as I draw breath. This is no longer a strategy. It is your way of being. You do not get sloppy with your time because you are comfortable now. You do not treat commitments lightly because you've earned the right. You do not let your mind grow soft because you've already learned enough. Comfort is the siren song that has destroyed more greatness than hardship ever did. The law will not protect you from that song. It will only respond to whether you keep rowing or start drifting. At a deeper level, you must understand that this law is also moral. It is not just about money, titles, or achievements. It is about stewardship, how well you handle what you are given. When you obey the law, you are not only building a bigger life, you are becoming a bigger person, one who can carry more weight without collapsing. That weight includes responsibility for others, people whose lives are shaped by how seriously you take your own, children who watch you, partners who trust you, strangers who gain strength from your example. This is why you cannot treat your standards as private preferences. They are signals sent into the world about what is possible. They give others permission to rise or to remain small. The hidden law not only multiplies your actions back into your own life, it multiplies their effect outward. When you slack, you teach those around you that slacking is acceptable. When you rise, you teach those around you that rising is available. Whether you intend to or not, you are always leading someone. When you absorb this, self-pity becomes unacceptable. You no longer have the luxury of seeing yourself as a victim. Victims cannot steward influence. They can only spread helplessness. The law cannot trust them with power because they will use it to reinforce their own weakness. You may have been wounded, cheated, overlooked, and underestimated. You may have been handed a difficult starting point. But if you are listening to this now, you have also been handed understanding. And understanding is a far greater advantage than any material gift. The moment you see the principle, you become responsible for it. You can no longer say, I didn't know. You know. The hidden law that guarantees success is not a slogan or a hope. It is a description of how the world has always worked behind the noise. The only thing left is whether you will honor it more consistently than you have honored your own excuses. So how do you keep that honor alive over the long haul? You build rituals that lock it in. Grand resolutions fade. Systems remain. Sit down with yourself and write, in clear language, the standards that define you now. How you treat your mornings, how you approach your work, what you will and will not tolerate in your conduct, how you respond to setbacks, how you guard your mind and your time. Do not write poetry. Write rules and then review them. Next, Surround those standards with safeguards. Do not rely on willpower alone. Change your environment to make obedience easier and disobedience harder. Remove obvious temptations from your reach. Arrange your workspace to invite focus. Distance yourself from voices that constantly encourage you to let up, slow down, or be realistic in the worst sense of that word. Fill your ears and your eyes with reminders, not distractions. Then cultivate gratitude, not the soft, vague kind, but fierce gratitude. The kind that says, I am thankful for this struggle because it is sharpening me. I am thankful for this responsibility because it proves I am trusted. I am thankful for this delay because it is stretching my capacity. Gratitude keeps you from poisoning your own progress with bitterness. A bitter man may become rich, but he will never become truly successful because his inner life will remain impoverished. You will have quiet victories no one will celebrate but you. The night you choose to work instead of drifting, the morning you rise on time after a late, difficult day, the moment you tell the truth instead of taking the easy way out. These are not small. These are the bricks from which your entire future is being laid. Recognize them. This is me becoming who I said I would be. And what a fear. The fear of failing even while obeying the law. That fear is the last trick of the old self. It whispers, what if you give everything and it still doesn't work? You answer it with the only response the law respects. If I obey fully, it cannot fail. The only way to lose is to quit. Fear cannot argue with a man who has decided that quitting is off the table. One day, if you stay faithful to this path, you will look back with a kind of shock. You will see that the person you used to be, the one who made excuses, who drifted, who waited for motivation, feels like another lifetime. You will see how small your old standards were, how noisy your old mind was, how crowded your days were with nonsense. You will not hate that person. You will be grateful to them for surviving long enough to hear the truth and for having the courage, however shaky at first, to act on it. From that vantage point, you will also see something else. How many people are still missing the law? You will see them chasing every new tactic, every new distraction, every new promise of ease, while the simple principle sits in plain sight. You will reap what you repeatedly sow. Some will be ready to hear it. Others will not. Your job is not to force it on anyone. Your job is to live it so completely that your life becomes a demonstration of what is possible when a human being finally stops arguing with reality and starts cooperating with it. In the end, this is what the hidden law gives you. Not just success by the world's definitions, but a clean conscience, a strong mind, and a life you do not need to escape from. It gives you the ability to lie down at night knowing that whatever your current results, you did not betray yourself today. It gives you the power to look at any challenge and say, if there is a way through this, I will find it. Not because I am special, but because I am obedient to the process. You cannot control every outcome. You cannot predict every storm. You cannot script every turn life will take. But under this law, you never again have to feel helpless. You always control the cause you are being, the standard you are living, the seed you are planting. That is where your real authority lies. So let this be settled in you now. Success is not a mystery, a miracle, or a lottery. It is a law. Most miss it because they would rather protect their excuses than build their discipline. You will not be one of them. From this moment on, you will treat every day as evidence, every habit as a vote, every choice as a signal to the law about who you are. And as you do, you will watch with increasing certainty as life begins to return to you with interest everything you have decided to become.